Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to do scary stories from the subreddit Stay Awake. So before we get started, grab yourself a blanket, some snacks, and something to drink, and get ready. Are you ready, Darius?
Ready when you are.
Okay. So the first story is called, I worked as an overnight security guard at a local college. I quit after seeing something in the parking lot. You ready for it?
Interesting.
Very interesting, yes. So it goes, I had just gone through a pretty rough divorce a few months ago. For the brief 2 years my ex and I were married, most of our nights ended up turning into shouting matches and insults. We were always so loud we had gotten several noise complaints and an eventual ultimatum that we could be thrown out of the building. Anyway, we ended the whole thing, and she got the most of everything. The house belonged to her family, along with most of everything in it. She let me only have my clothes, some photos, and my dog, Riley. I was short on money at the time. Luckily, a friend of mine let me stay in his home for as long as I needed him. While there, I was looking for a better paying job to help me get my life back on track. My search led me to an opening for a campus security guard at the local community college. I arrived at the interview to learn that this was a job for the night shift. Also, it's usually called the graveyard shift as well. I'm just saying that because a lot of people don't realize when someone says they work the graveyard shift, it just means night shift.
Doesn't mean an actual graveyard.
Yeah, it doesn't mean an actual graveyard. It just means they're working like basically midnight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, when everyone else is asleep. So it continues saying, I wasn't too sure about taking the job at first, but my bills and growing debt weren't going to pay off themselves. Needless to say, I started the next night. The campus itself was a decent size, both in terms of area and the number of students. The core campus includes 14 educational and auxiliary buildings. The security office was by the south entrance of the college, situated on the second floor of the parking garage. The 2 senior security guards, James and Darnell, walked me through my job description. My task every night was to complete 2 full searches around campus, checking all the buildings and monitoring the security cameras. My shift would start at 9:30 at night and go through 6 o'clock in the morning, by which time I take the bus home. Again, that's usually when everyone's asleep. So basically from the time when people are going to bed and starting to wake up is his shift.
Not a bad shift though.
No. Anyways, he continues to say, the job itself wasn't too bad. I kind of developed a friendship between James and Darnell. Since there was a brief period of time, our shifts would overlap. By the time they both left, it would be midnight for me, and I'd be alone on campus. It's so surreal how such a place that's bustling and full of students can quickly empty out and turn silent. Actually, I can believe it. As a college student myself, when my class is over, I'm gone. I don't hang around. I just leave. I'm done. So the quickly emptying is very real. Like, the class I am taking currently, when the class is over, we all just, like, book it out. Like, no one stops to hang out or talk. We all just leave.
I mean, it's not high school anymore.
Yeah, like, you don't have to stay. If you can leave, you leave. Anyways, he continues to say, when my shift starts, there are usually a few cars left in the lot for those who took evening classes. Some instructors and other staff would sometimes work extra late, but those instances were rare. In short, my interactions with other people besides my coworkers was almost non-existent. This is great for introverts. People who don't want to talk to other people, like, this would be a good job for you. He continues to say, sometimes on break or in between circuits, if it stayed quiet on campus, I'd read a book or listen to spooky stories on my phone. Oh boy. Don't you know you're not supposed to do that at night? Because then you psych yourself out.
Yeah, I'm guilty for that.
Okay, anyways, he continues to say, after listening, I would start to feel a little creeped out. Yeah, did I not say that? Feel a little creeped out for being in a campus all alone after dark, but I got used to it. It killed the boredom until I started my next circuit started. I wouldn't find much of anything out of the ordinary, aside from the random object left behind by a student, which I would bring back to the lost and found. I just had to make sure no one else was hanging around after closing. After coming back, I would check the security footage in case I missed something. There were a few screens recording specific spots with the most activity during the day. One for each parking lot, one for each floor in all the buildings, and one for the administrative office. Something tells me something's going to happen in one of these buildings. I got decent pay every couple of weeks. After a while, I moved out of my friend's house and got a small apartment and was saving up for a used car. I felt like my luck was starting to turn around finally. Then, I had the scariest experience of my life. How much you want to bet? Because he psyched himself out watching those scary stories on his phone while doing the night shift. Anyways, he continues saying, I was left alone around midnight like always. The campus was absolutely deserted at this time, like normal. It was summer during this time, so the night was pretty warm. I felt like I was building a bit of sweat in my security uniform while doing my first circuit. I came back to the security office after finding nothing of note and checked the camera feed. I found nothing in any of the screens until I checked the one for the south lot near the office. Something. Just so we know, my goal is not to turn on the light. Maddie might be turning on the light soon. Anyways, he continues and says, while the screen was small, I could discern the moving of a large shadow across one of the lampposts. It was doing nothing but moving back and forth across the light. The shadow looked too large to some small bird or animal. I deduced it had to be someone parked off screen so I couldn't visibly see them. I went out there to check things out and found nothing there. If it were a person just effing around, they would have to have left a sign of their presence. There was nothing left behind. I didn't hear a car driving off or any noise for that matter. I scoped the rest of the south lot to find the source of the shadow. Still nothing. I sighed in annoyance at the thought of some Jack A deciding to waste my time. Nothing else happened the rest of the night. I got used to sleeping during the day, but all I could afford to sleep on was a cheap couch that was anything but comfortable. It was rare that I got a full 8 hours of sleep on it. And to top it off, the AC unit had he put crapped out. My cheap apartment had gotten warmer, making much harder to sleep. I got to the college at the start of my shift with maybe 4 or 5.5 hours of sleep. I had coffee, but it only lasted for so long. For me, I can't drink coffee cold, especially if it started off warm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who likes cold coffee anyway? Oh wait, I don't even like coffee. But continue.
I mean, I don't mind cold coffee if it was meant to be cold, but if it was meant to be hot and then you drink it cold, it just, to me, doesn't taste right.
Right.
Anyways, he continues saying, with it being extremely late, my office feeling cool, and it being quiet everywhere, I started feeling drowsy. Sleeping on the job wasn't allowed, of course, but every now and then I let myself have a brief nap to refresh myself. So I set my head on the desk and fell asleep instantly. I was later jolted awake. A feeling of something very wrong switched my tired mind on alert and woke me up. I rubbed my eyes and checked the monitor to see if anything was up. I looked at the camera feed for the south lot. Oh boy, my eyes narrowed. Beneath one of the lamp lights, a person was standing, not doing anything, just being very still. I couldn't make out any details, but this person had long black hair and looked very tall, for almost reaching the light. I looked at the bottom of the screen and found the camera was still recording. Whoever the camera was showing was still there. The feeling that jolted me awake intensified, and I was aware of myself shaking. A chill colder than the air inside the office crept up my neck. My body was reacting to some sort of danger the image was giving off. Still, a weird person on the security footage was not an excuse to not do my job. I value my life over a job. I'm just saying. I value my life. Do you value your life over your job? Considering if anything was anywhere near where you are, it'd be shot immediately.
Okay, yes.
He's in the military,
also,
so if a civilian was trying to get on base, there's a fair chance that that civilian's not going to make it. Especially if they have no permission to be on base.
Exactly.
So, he's safe. You can do this because you know you're safe. This is a civilian to you who doesn't value his life over his job. Anyways, he continued to say, I got to the lot in under a minute, and I saw that person still standing under the lamplight. Oh, no. Y'all are about to watch Maddie have a mental breakdown over this. Just being dead still. Their back was facing toward me, and their head seemed to be bowed forward. As I approached closer and tried to get their attention, I found that the trespasser was very tall and lanky and was wearing a dirty white dress. Oh, no. I'm actually scared. I called her again, asking if she needed help, but didn't respond. She just kept standing like a statue where she was. I reached out to touch her, and my hand retracted back from the burning sensation her skin gave off. As if she were on fire, I cursed and shook my head to cool it off, and the lady moved for the first time. Her head lifted upward, as if finally acknowledging I was there. She turned around, and I started to track backwards. Just reading the next line kind of doesn't sit right with me. Her body was humanoid, but she had the head of a goat or ram. The fur was pitch black, contrasting against her pale skin and white dress. The eyes were red like burning embers, and strands of flesh hung off its curved horns. As my backwards walk sped up, I could hear it give off a deep, thunderous roar. I ran back towards the office, and I swear I could hear the thing sprinting after me. Ugh. It's almost finished, but still, that's kind of freaky. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, and I barricaded myself in the security office. For good measure, I switched off the lights inside and called 911. I told them something was on campus and they sent someone over. I hung up and strained my eyes to hear any noise outside my office. It was hard to notice anything other than the pounding of my heart working overtime. I felt like an eternity before I heard the knocking at the door. The cops notified their presence, and I slowly opened the door. They questioned me about what I called for. When I told them, they looked at me as if I were a mental patient for a drug use or a drug user. I played the footage back for them, and their thing was, at the very least, they weren't going to arrest me for making a fake emergency call. But with the trespasser gone, there wasn't much they could do. They left, and I was once again alone. This time, I was very afraid. Not that I was alone, but afraid that I wasn't alone, and that thing was still out there. I wasn't taking any chances. I waited in the office and kept the door locked until the end of my shift. I left a note saying I resigned immediately, and I never went back.
Good man.
Oh my god, and the first comment... The first comment says, I think you saw Lady Satan. I would say Jesus Christ, but I feel like this isn't the right place. And then someone commented underneath, maybe it was Lady Gaga prepping for her Judas performance.
People got strange shit.
Some people have a strange sense of humor, but that was kind of funny. Oh my god. Okay. I'm gonna take a break real quick. Hold on. Okay. I turned on my lights. I just turned them off to start this video again. The next story. I will say this. The next part, I had to repeat it to Darius. I was like, the part that scared me the most was she was almost humanoid. Her body was humanoid. Like, then what the fuck is it?
A demon.
Yeah, and like some poor girl's body.
Well, demons can take shapes of all, any shape or form, but
That's not the point.
Well, I'm just saying the iconic view of them is a goat head with a human body.
Yeah, but she had fur. Because said the fur was pitch black, contrasting against her pale skin and the white dress. What goat do you? I haven't personally seen a goat with completely white head. I mean, a completely black fur head. I've seen them with like black with some white.
Yeah, but and to symbolize the
okay, I don't need symbolize. I don't need symbolism, dude.
I'm just saying.
Just shut up. Just I need to move on to the next story. My mom said you killed beings. Hold on. How? All I do... It's because he's asleep. Okay, so I have birthday cake for my birthday. And my cat was on my mom. So I gave him some weed. He's sleeping on the board in which the catnip was on. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'll show you later. I didn't actually kill him. He's fine. Telling me I killed my cat. Anyways, the next story goes, if you hear a siren, don't go outside. Oh, good. And this is from in Japan. Okay. It goes, I woke to the sound of a police car siren while traveling in Japan last summer. The siren wasn't overly loud, but loud enough to wake me up. It didn't grow closer or nor distant, as if the siren, whatever its origin, was from something stationary. Without getting out of bed, I reached for the curtain of my hotel bedroom window and groggily pulled it towards me. Why? Revealing it was still dark outside, I tried to see some of Royal Japan away from Tokyo, and what I soon realized was the low season, staying in hotels and hostels with little to no guests. That night, I was sure I was the only person in the hotel, as the owner had gone home, and I didn't see anyone else there. I remember thinking quite spooky when brushing my teeth and walking back to my room through a deserted corridor. These small towns I found myself in were quiet, dilapidated, and sparse thanks to population decline. Sorry if I butchered that. A far cry from towns in the UK, which I grew up in, with their tightly packed terraced houses, traffic jams, and police car sirens that sounded every night, responding to stabbings we'd read about in next day's local news. Yeah, that happens here too, but it's usually not stabbings, it's usually with a gun. Right, Darius?
Guns, knives, axes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Welcome to America.
Yeah. This is if you're from another place. Like, legitimately, if you're going to travel here, make sure you research the area you're going to stay in. I mean, that doesn't mean there's not crime there. It's just stay in a place with very low crime. Anyways, whoever it is continues. I don't know if it's a female or a male. They continued. Hearing a police car siren was so trivial. I lay my head back on the pillow without thinking much of it. Although crimes are rare in quiet towns such as this, they still happen occasionally. In any moment, I thought I'd see red lights flash into the room's faded wallpaper as a black and white police car speeds by. It's supposed to be sped by. Speeds by. I waited, but not such lights appeared, and I found myself becoming increasingly agitated, unable to figure out a reason. Why was I so agitated by the sound of a police car siren? Had I committed a crime and somehow forgotten about it? Then I realized the siren's sound wasn't of a Japanese police car. It was from a British police car. But that don't make no sense. They're in Japan, so you should hear a Japanese police car. And yes, every country has a different emergency vehicle sound. Ours is wee woo.
Well, I mean, most countries do have the same siren sounds. Some of them do.
No, not all. Anyways, they continue saying different countries' emergency vehicles have different sirens. And I was amused upon first hearing a Japanese police car a few days earlier. It sounded just like they did in anime. Thinking it was strange to hear a British police siren in rural Japan, I stood up to look out the window, concentrating to see into the darkness. Staying in smaller towns and cities, I'd realized unsettling street lighting is as scattered as the people who live there and often non-existent. Sometimes after dark, the only light source is a lone vending machine in a bus stop that's used twice a day. It was an eeriness I'd never grown accustomed to in my time there. But outside the hotel, far down the road, was a flickering streetlight by a junction in the road. And further still, I saw the outline of the area's tsunami warning system. A metal tower like a mobile phone mast, with megaphones atop facing every direction to warn of incoming tsunamis. Another trait of Japanese towns which isn't found in the UK. I'd walk past it during the daytime on my way to the hotel without paying much attention to it. Having seen identical structures in towns I'd visited previously, I remember the sight of rust showing through its gray paintwork and not much else. To be fair, any metal pole, even here in the US, they won't really fix it. They just paint over it. It's cheaper. Yeah, I don't know if you heard of me, but he said that's true. Like, it's to save money, like politicians here in the US, to save money, they'll just like paint over it. They won't make anything brand new, like poles, even though if it would need to be new, they'll just paint over and call it new and call it a day. That's what's worse. Anyways, they continued. I wondered if that could be the source of the sound, but why would it play the sound of a British police car and so late at night? The streetlight flickered off. For a moment, I saw only blackness until the light was back and the tsunami warning tower was closer. Just gonna do it now. Was closer. I blinked, thinking I must be mistaken. It was late at night and I don't always perceive things correctly when tired, but the siren was just slightly louder than it had been a moment before. I stared out the window into the night, then slowly the tower, or what I thought was a tower, stepped towards me. A skinny leg twisted from its metal framework structure, lifting and planting it into the road before the rest of its lanky body repeated the same contorting movements on the other side. The upper body unfurled. I can't say half these words they're using. Crouched cruelly for unfurled. Either way, forwards and backwards with each stride. Due to its slenderness, it moved like it weighed nothing. I watched it take 4 steps towards me, unable to believe what I was seeing, until I was overcome by fear. I knew it was coming from me specifically. I was probably the only British person for miles, and yet chose to play a sound common in the UK. As it moved by the street light, I caught glimpses of the rusty surface, only then realizing it wasn't rust. It was flesh. Finally believing what I was seeing, I hid in the first place I could see, which happened to be under a wooden table by the window. It's legitimately a siren head. It's Siren Head. I already know what it is. Anyways, they continue to say, the siren grew louder and louder. It echoed throughout the room until stopping suddenly, an eerie silence in its place. I felt my heart thumping in my chest, in my ears, and I tried to breathe as slowly as I could to make as little noise as possible. I felt as though something were outside looking into the window. I stayed still, not daring to look. The silence was soon broken by a tap on the window, then a drawn-out scratch, repeated agonizing slowly for the next few minutes. It sounded powerful enough to easily break the window if it wanted to, as if it wanted me outside, but I wouldn't move. The knocks and scratches continued slowly, rhythmically. Phrases in Japanese I didn't understand crackled loudly, sounding just like a voice spoken in a megaphone, garbled one after another in lieu of the siren. Among the many words and sentences, I heard one which I finally understood in my rudimentary Japanese. I don't know how to... Hold on. Sorry. I don't know how to say it, but the translation is, or please come. I'm not even going to attempt to try and say it in Japanese because I will fail miserably. So it says, or please come in English. It's a phrase I'd heard in Japanese evening classes I'd taken a few months prior. The voice sounded strangely like my Japanese teacher, though terrifyingly distorted, an amalgamation of numerous voices to synthesize the various words. It repeated the words, please come. I heard it repeat. It repeated like 3 times, but in Japanese, and I can't read it. I heard it repeat. The only phrase I understood, and somehow it knew to repeat it. That's when I heard a click downstairs from the hotel's front entrance. It understood how to use doors. Oh, yikes. I held my breath, knowing the front door is locked at night, but wasn't sure what time. The door shook like an earthquake while I sat still, hunched under the table. I don't know how long this lasted, how long it shook the front door, or how long it held through those megaphones. It eventually stopped as suddenly as it began, but I stayed under the table until long after daylight, too frightened to move. That was the longest night of my life. The sun was high in the sky by the time I crept from under the table and grabbed my phone. After finding the location of the nearest Kobain on Google Maps, I don't know what that is, I left the hotel and headed straight to it. Upon exiting the hotel, I glanced out where the tsunami warning tower had been. It was gone. Then I glanced at my room's window and the building's exterior for a sign of damage, but found none. I walked quickly to the Kobain, looking over my shoulder frequently as I went. Greeted by a skinny old police officer there, and in my nearest Japanese, also with some help from Google Translate, I told him someone had tried to break into the hotel I was staying in. I chose not to talk about the siren and voices, thinking it would sound too strange to be believed. The police officer, with a grateful look on his face and looking down in a slight bow, told me there was nothing the police could do except run a few patrols past in the coming days, and inform the hotel manager since nothing was damaged or stolen, and I couldn't or wouldn't describe what the assailant looked like, nor did I call why the incident took place. I silently cursed myself for not bringing my phone under the table with me. About to leave, opting immediately to cut this excursion short and return to Tokyo, I asked if someone moved the tsunami warning tower. The police officer looked up from the desk, puzzled, before his eyes widened.
My mother lives in a...
Stupid Netflix started a fucking play.
Oh, that's too funny.
If you find it funny that I got scared, if you thought it was funny that I got scared, leaving a sideways emoji in the comments if you found that funny. Anyways, about to leave, opting immediately to cut his excursion short and return to Tokyo, I asked if someone moved the tsunami warning tower. The police officer looked up from the desk, puzzled, before his eyes widened. He spoke in that calm voice Japanese people seem to reserve for confused foreign tourists. We're 60 kilometers from the sea and surrounded by mountains. We don't need a tsunami warning system here. I felt a chill rush down my spine upon hearing those words, leaving at once to grab my things and leave. None of the towns I'd stayed in were near the sea, all within mountainous terrain. Yet all towns had tsunami warning towers. They were everywhere. Then I remembered the look the police officer had given when I asked about the tsunami warning tower near the hotel. He knew what I was talking about. I soon hastily packed my backpack and hurried to a desolated train station of a struggling third sector railway, the quickest way out of town. Eventually, seeing the headlights of an approaching train where two rusty tracks met in the far distance, I stood up, eager to board as soon as possible. As I did, a huge flock of crows, that's not a good sign, crows ascended suddenly from trees in the surrounding forests, fluttering upwards as though frightened by something. Then from where they'd taken off, something, I can't say that word, something, I don't know what the thing says. Something tall lumbered among the treetops, too far for me to ascertain much detail, but I noticed a silhouette outline of megaphones through branches before my view was obscured by the approaching train. Did I not call it? It's Siren Head. I still can't get over the fact Netflix deadass scared me. Why does it do that?
I don't know. I guess Netflix is like, it doesn't want people to stop watching their things.
Yeah, but I'm not even in the same tab as Netflix is open, and it shouldn't do that.
I don't know. It does it on my computer sometimes.
I know. Anyways, let me read the last paragraph. Having since returned home, I thought less and less of that night and what I'd encountered. Although my heart still misses a beat whenever I hear the sound of an emergency vehicle, until a couple of weeks ago, when I stumbled on a YouTube video shared in a group chat. The video is titled, "Who is Siren Head?" I felt dizzy upon noticing the thumbnail. Watching it, I felt my heart thump in the same way it had that night, all those months ago. I'm sure what I'd encountered was indeed Siren Head. I felt vindicated knowing I'm not the only person to have been stalked by it, but terrified to know Siren Head is very much real. Also slightly miffed, some illustrator is trying to pass it off as his own creation. Now, I'm not sure if there's anything we can do to stop Siren Head or any reliable advice I can give, but if you ever hear a siren or megaphone late at night, please don't go outside. And one person said, maybe you heard about it. That Siren Head can also mimic the sound of humans or animals. If you ever hear some person calling for help somewhere at night, that might be him. Did I not call it?
Interesting. Well, I'm guessing you're not going outside anytime soon at night.
Oh no, I still go outside at night, but if I hear something, I kind of tend to quickly run to my door and shut it and lock it and pretend I didn't hear anything, and I go into the living room and start talking with my parents like nothing happened. But nothing will be when I came in a close encounter with a raccoon at night. So I was taking out the trash. So around January is when it gets dark at like 6:30. So it wasn't that late at night, but I was taking trash out. I had just cleaned my cat's litter box, and there's this raccoon searching for food, and I just so happened to stood still, and then when I moved, I scared the raccoon, but the raccoon scared me. So we scared each other, but probably not as bad as Netflix did. And these are stories from the subreddit Stay Awake. I doubt this is actually a real story, because their posts include creepy story, no story, icon posts, and horror narrations. So I don't think these stories are real, but they're fun to read and get scared.
I mean, hey, those Japanese people never tell lies in their stories.
Well, no, this person's from the UK.
Depending on which area of the UK, they still don't lie either. Some of their stories are true.
Well, if it's true, I honestly don't know. But it's still freaky. I'm sorry. I'll put it that way. It's still freaky. Anyways, I'm going to end the video now. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like or a thumbs up. If you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe and turn the bell notification. And I'll see y'all in the next post.